Hello, my name is Rabbi Rebecca DUBOWE, and I have the title as Rabbi. So, what is a rabbi? A rabbi is the leader of the Jewish people. And in this town of Bloomington Normal, we have a synagogue known as Moses Montefiore Congregation. You don't have to remember the name, but what's most important for you to know that there is a community of Jewish people. Now today we are going to learn more about our history and what we must remember. You see, in the Jewish history, there have been things that have happened that were not so good. But most importantly for us to remember today is how to respect one another, how to treat each other with kindness. You see, there are people out there that maybe because we have a different skin color or we're in different shape or we are from a different country, and sometimes they just don't understand. But today, we have to learn how to be kind. It's okay to be different. And that's why we're happy to be here with you, to celebrate our differences and the fact that we are all alike in so many different ways. I hope you enjoy the rest of the program today.
Hi everybody, thank you for joining this event today. I am here as a member of the Moses Montefiore Temple here in Bloomington, and we are going to take some time today to remember some past Jewish history, hear a story, and then do a craft so we can look forward to acceptance. This book that we're going to read today is called The Butterfly. It is written and illustrated by Patricia Polacco, who is partly Jewish herself, which is a pretty cool fact. The publisher of this book is Penguin Putnam. And this book takes place during the Holocaust, which was during World War II, and it was a rough time for the Jewish people. So we're going to read some more about that today in this story called The Butterfly. It was unusually bright that night outside of Monique's small bedroom window in Choisy-le-Roi, just outside of Paris. The moon was so radiant it seemed almost festive. As Monique gazed up at it, she thought that the moon must not know that her village was occupied by Nazi troops. All of France was, for that matter. There was a terrible war raging in what to Monique seemed like the most of the world. But this night the moon seemed not to care. She pulled Pinot, her cat, up next to her and hugged and kissed her goodnight, then drifted off to sleep. Monique didn't quite know why she woke up, but suddenly she saw a ghostly little figure sitting just next to the window on her side of the bed. A girl about her own age. She was petting Pinot. "Who are you?" Monique whispered. The ghost child wheeled and looked with sad eyes that seemed frightened. She spun and ran from the bedroom. The next morning at breakfast, Monique could hardly wait to talk to her mother about the ghost, but her mother seemed almost angry. It wasn't like Marcel Solange to be angry at anyone. "It was only a dream, child. Do you hear? Only a dream. Now go to school. God knows how much longer you will have the privilege of going to school with the war." Her mother's voice trailed off. Monique couldn't wait to get to school so that she could tell her best friend, Denise, about the ghost. Since Monique was an only child, Denise was like a sister to her. On their way home from school that afternoon, Denise asked Monique, "What did the ghost look like?" "She was dark and had very sad eyes," Monique answered. "Weren't you very, very frightened?" Denise asked. "At first, yes. But the longer I looked at her, the feeling came over me. A feeling of fear for her," Monique answered. They stopped and peered into the front window of Monsieur Marc's candy shop. He waved them in as he always did. He loved the children in the neighborhood and always had small bites of brightly wrapped candies for them in his apron pocket. As the girls entered the store, they saw that most of the jars that had been filled with every kind of candy and confection were empty. The war. But Monsieur Marx had saved something for them. For you, little Monique, Monsieur Marx cooed as he dropped a bright dot of sweetness into her hand. And one for you, ma petite, he said, as the beautifully wrapped confection rolled into Denise's waiting hand. Monique and Denise unwrapped their candies and popped them into their mouths. But as they were walking away from the door, they suddenly saw tall boots coming toward them and up the hill. The tall boots of marching Nazi soldiers, their heels clicked like gunshots along the cobblestone path. People froze and tried not to look at the soldiers. The girls wanted to run, but knew better. They had learned to chat and laugh as if they had no cares in the world. Are they looking at us? Monique asked breathlessly when they had gotten a good distance away. Denise looked back. No, they're still marching. Then they heard loud yelling and glass breaking. They both wheeled and looked. To their horror, they saw Monsieur Mark being dragged from his shop by the Nazi soldiers. Schwischen! Juden Schwien! They heard the Nazis shout as they pushed Monsieur Mark to the ground. They watched the Nazis kick him hard in the ribs with those tall black boots. Monique covered her mouth to hold back a scream. Then a car drove up and the Nazis threw Monsieur Marx into the back of it. Don't look for too long, Monique, Denise warned. If we do, they'll come for us next. The girls were both sobbing by the time they ran up Road de Barnard to Monique's mother's house. They knew it had happened before during these years of occupation, but never had they seen it. And to Monsieur Marx. Why, Mama, did they do it to Monsieur Marx? Monique choked through sobs. The Nazis hate people like Monsieur Marx, ma chérie. It is so pointless and cruel. Her voice faded to a whisper. What do you mean, people like Monsieur Marx, Mama? Monique asked again. You know, Monique, her mother answered. Jews. But Monsieur Marx is a Frenchman, Denise said. Marcel hugged them both. The Nazis can't be here forever, my sweet children. Mother France has been here for centuries. For a short, terrible time, Marcel had tears in her eyes. Now I'll fix you some soothing tea. Monsieur Marx would not have wanted either of you to be worried or sad. Madame, a voice called from the front door. It was Pierre Voillard, the priest from Saint-Germain-des-Prés. He rushed in. Have you heard? The priest whispered. About what happened to Monsieur Marx? Marcel motioned him to come into the other room, and they closed the door. Monique was used to her mother having hushed conversations in the living room, especially since the war. Many nights passed, and Monique didn't see the little ghost again. But late one night, Monique awoke with a start to see her little ghost sitting on the window seat. This time, it was Pudding Pignouf. Monique thought, this is no dream. I can hear Pignouf purring. I see you there, Monique whispered. The little ghost sprang to her feet, but Monique stopped her from running away this time. Don't be afraid. It's all right for you to be here. The little ghost with sad eyes sat down and said nothing. What is your name? Where do you come from? Monique asked. The little girl sat for the longest time, holding on tightly to Pignouf. I once had a cat just like this, she finally said. Her name is Pignouf. What is yours? Monique sat down by her. My name is Séverine. Where do you live? Monique whispered. I have lived in many places since the war, the ghostly Séverine answered. Where do you live now? Your parents must miss you, especially in the middle of the night like this. The little girl didn't answer. Where do you live? Monique insisted. Here, Séverine finally said. Here? Monique said with such surprise and so loudly that it might have wakened the whole neighborhood. But I live here! Séverine motioned Monique to follow her. They both tiptoed down the stairs and crept into the day room. There Monique saw the rug pulled back and what looked like a door in the floor. Séverine pulled out the door and they both climbed down a very narrow set of stairs into a part of the cellar that Monique didn't even know existed. The walls were scraped clean and there was a small table with a tiny tray and supper dishes on it. Monique could see another small room with cots. It looked like people were sleeping on them. My mother and father and I have been here for a very long time, Severine whispered. We were being hunted by the Nazis. You know, we are Jews. There are many of us hiding all over France. But how have you stayed here without my mama knowing? Oh, Madame Soliage? She knows. We aren't the only ones she has helped. How could this have been happening in her own home and her mother never said a word to her about it? Your mother made me promise that I would never come to your room again while you were there. I don't understand. It puts you in great danger to know about me. She's protecting you. Monique started to say more, but it sounded like footsteps echoing upstairs. Could Marcel have heard them? Vite, vite, Monique. Severine pushed her up out of the hidden room. But when will I see you again? Monique whispered as the door closed at the top of her new friend. The next morning at breakfast, Monique didn't know what to say to her mother. Somehow she seemed mysterious, but she chatted to Monique cheerfully as always. Go to your garden, my sweet child, and cut some of the beautiful flowers for our table, won't you? Monique skipped out of the kitchen doors into her garden with her Pinyof trotting after her. Pinyof was playing with the petals of the flowers as Monique cut them and put them into the basket, when all at once the cat crouched and made herself flat against the ground. Her eyes were ablaze. Then Monique saw why. A papillon, a butterfly, fluttered from flower to flower. As it landed on a bright blue iris near the wall, Monique gathered Pinyof into her lap. No, ma petite, just look. See how beautiful? They both sat quietly as they watched the butterfly together. Suddenly, the air grew still and heavy. The birds in the garden stopped singing. Pinyof hid herself in the folds of Monique's apron. Monique looked out the wall and saw tall, shiny boots. Her heart leapt into her chest. 3 Nazi soldiers glared at her. One reached over the wall and took the butterfly in his leather-covered fist. Jolie, n'est-ce pas? He grinned at Monique, then squeezed his fist. The other tall boots laughed. They mumbled something and walked away. Mama, tall boots, Monique shrieked as she ran into the house and blurted out what had happened in the garden. Scarebleu! That's monsters, her mother grumbled as she held the child close to her. Mama, Monique finally sobbed, did they do that to Monsieur Marx, what they did to the butterfly? Her mother did not answer. She rocked Monique gently and stared out the window, but Monique had her answer. Now she understood the sadness in Severine's eyes. The fear was in the eyes of her neighbors and friends. Whenever the Nazi soldiers came close, she knew now she had to protect her friend. At all costs, she had to keep the secret that lived in her basement. From that time on, Severine came to Monique's room as often as she could, without waking her own parents or Monique's mother. Marcel could never know. When the girls were together, they played dress-up and had midnight tea parties. They laughed and giggled and told each other dreams. Monique collected things from the outside world for Severine to see and feel and touch. What did you bring me tonight? Severine asked softly one night. Monique reached into a small cloth bag and sprinkled rich black earth onto Severine's hands. This smells like the air outside, Monique told her. Then she handed Severine a bright flower from her garden. This will be your sunshine. And now, close your eyes. Monique slowly opened her cupped hands. Look, it was a gorgeous butterfly. A papillon, Severine whispered in wonder. Monique put the butterfly near Severine's cheek. Let its wings flutter, Monique whispered. Severine caught her breath and smiled. Like the kiss of an angel, Monique said sweetly. Tears began to fill Severine's eyes and roll down her cheeks. I missed my home, Monique, my own bed, my own kitty, my garden. The Nazis won't be here forever. Mama says they will lose the war, Monique reassured her. At our house, Severine went on, we celebrated Shabbat, the holidays Passover and Hanukkah. My mother cooked for days. Family came from everywhere. Then it all changed. We had to leave. My parents were afraid that the Nazis would kill us. You'll be home someday. You'll see. Papa is so sick from breathing damp air. He hasn't seen sunlight for months. Mama has to cover his cough with a pillow so that his coughing can't be heard upstairs. I promise, Severine. Someday you'll be as free as a papillon. Let it fly now, Monique, Severine said. When it flies, it will be as if Papa, Mama, and I are flying away. The girls took the butterfly to the open bedroom window and threw it into the night air, then stood and watched it until they couldn't see it anymore. All of a sudden, they looked up. For what reason, who knew? They saw Monsieur Landorme, the next-door neighbor, looking right at them from his window across the courtyard. Monique's heart leapt into her chest. Severine slid down under the windowsill so that Monsieur Landorme couldn't see her. The girls looked at each other in their sheer terror. They knew that they had to tell Marcel. They ran to her room and awoke her. She was startled to see the two of them together. When they told her about their secret meetings and Monsieur Landorme, Marcel sank to her knees in front of them. Mon Dieu, she said mournfully as she rocked with fear. Are you angry, Madame Soulanger? Severine asked as she began to cry. Oh, no, ma petite, no, of course I am not angry. You are a little girl. You didn't ask for this war or to be kept in my cellar. You needed to play. Children need other children. Marcel smoothed her hair. But you are no longer safe here, my dear. We must leave home tonight. Marcel began to pull on her clothes. We need to get you and your family out of the country. Let me see. Pierre Vouillard will take your parents to the next refuge. You will travel with Monique and me. Yes, hurry, petite. Put on as many clothes as you can. Dress in layers. We can't carry cases or we will attract attention. The girls watched as Marcel, Pierre Vouillard, and Severine's parents dug holes in the cellar floor and buried everything that would look like someone had lived there. Then it was time for them all to leave. Her parents came out dressed as a nun and a priest. They both cried as they held Severine and said their goodbyes. They would next meet in a village in southern France near the Swiss border. God be with us this night, Pierre Vouillard prayed. Adonai Yehele Atanu Halila, Severine's father prayed as he cried. God will be with us tonight. It seemed that Monique, Severine, and Marcel had walked for miles in darkness, through back alleys, avoiding street lamps, taking great care and to be as quiet as it was possible to be. With the first light of dawn, they had reached the countryside. They stopped to rest under a grove of trees close to their rendezvous with the people who would take Severine to her parents. Marcel had just given the girls some bread and cheese when she pulled them both into a ditch. She motioned for them to be still and quiet. A patrol car full of Nazi soldiers slowly drove by on the country road. After the car passed, the three sat without speaking. Finally, another car came driving slowly down the road. It stopped by the bridge a few hundred feet away and turned its headlights on and off 3 times. It's time, my precious child, Marcel whispered as she pushed Severine out of the ditch, and they ran toward the car. These people will help you and your mama and papa. At the car, Monique took something from her pouch she'd been carrying. It was Pinyof. Take her, Severine, Monique whispered. Tears welled up in Severine's eyes. She folded Pinyof into her sweater, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a fine gold chain on which hung a Star of David. Remember me, Monique. "We are practically home, my little one," Marcel said as she and Monique arrived at the train station in Melun. This was where they would board the train to go back to Choisy-le-Roi. But there was an unusual amount of travelers for this early time of day. The station was crowded. Nazi soldiers were everywhere, stopping people, searching them, and barking orders. Marcel took her daughter's hand. In the other, Monique clutched the chain. As Monique and Marcel drew closer and closer to the gate where their papers would be checked, Marcel pulled a bundle of tickets and documents from her handbag. The entire station of people had to squeeze through the tiny gate to board onto the train. Suddenly, the crowd behind Monique and her mother surged and pushed so hard, Monique lost Marcel's hand. Monique couldn't see her mother anywhere. People pushed and shoved and Monique couldn't see her mother anymore. People pushed and shoved, and Monique lost her footing and fell. When she did, Severine's necklace slid out of her hand and onto the platform floor. Quietly, she put it into her pocket, pulled herself to her feet, slipped into line that was pushing through the checkpoint, and was swept with them into the shabby coach car. The tall boots were shouting at everyone. What if they searched her and found the necklace? And where was her mama? She could see through the windows the train car people standing on the platform waiting to catch a train going in the opposite direction. Had her mother been pushed into that line instead of onto this train? She tried to see through her own tears to find her mother's face when she saw a little girl alone. She looked thin and sad, very sad, like Severine. On the girl's coat was a yellow Star of David. Was it Severine? No, she could see now it wasn't Severine, but it could have been. Monique held Severine's necklace tight in her pocket. "Oh, Mama, Mama, where are you?" she cried as the train lurched away. The train rolled into a noisy stop. St. George's, the sign read, only 2 kilometers from Choisy-le-Roi. From home, Monique walked through alleys and back streets that only hours before she, Severine, and Mama had passed. "Oh, Mama," she cried as she walked. When Monique finally saw the familiar threshold of her front door, she pushed it open and climbed the stairs. She could still smell her mother's scent in the air. She was tired, so tired. She threw herself across the bed and fell into a deep sleep. Then she dreamed of her mother's voice. "Ma chérie, ma petite," the voice said. She dreamt of a cool hand cross her brow. It seemed so real. When she opened her eyes, she saw that the hand was real. The voice was real. It was her mama. "Oh, my sweet, brave little girl," her mama cried as she rocked in her arms. "I just knew that I would find you here." One week passed. 2. Monique tried to imagine that Severine and her mama and papa and, of course, Pignouf were safe. Then the tall boots would march by her front gate, reminding her how hopeless it seemed. If only she had a message from Severine, a sign, something. And then one day, Monique and Marcel were planting next year's bulbs in the garden when Marcel suddenly gasped. "Regardez! Monique, look!" Her mother pointed at the bleak sky above them. A butterfly fluttered down into the garden, and another, and another. They both watched as butterflies started to land on the dry stalks of faded flowers. First there were 3, then 10, then 20, and 30. Neighbors came from their cottages and peered over the wall in wonder. "It's a sign, Mama, a miracle. Severine sent them. I know it. She and her parents are safe." Monique held up her hand, and a butterfly fluttered and landed on her finger. She took it into her cheek. Its wings fluttered. "A kiss," Monique said softly. That's the end of the story, but there is an author's note I would love for you guys to hear at the back. It gives a little bit more information about the story. Marcel Solianage was part of the French underground and resistance organized by General Charles de Gaulle. Marcel and many other selfless citizens of France made their own homes a safe haven for Jews escaping the freedom during the terrible Nazi occupation. They did this at great peril to their own lives as well as to the lives of their families. According to my Aunt Monique, her mother, Marcel, had been part of the underground and the resistance even before the Nazis occupied France. Monique was totally unaware until she met Severine, but even then was not aware of the extent of her mother's involvement until the end of the war. Within 2 years, the liberation of France, Monique and Marcel received a letter. It was a card with a drawing of a papillon inscribed on the cover. Inside it said, "Je vive," I live, Séverine. Next to her signature was a paw print. It was learned later that neither parent survived the attempt to escape. Séverine was delivered to Switzerland and eventually made it to England, where she remained with close friends of the family for the duration of the war. Sometime later, she relocated to the new state of Israel with her relatives. Monique and Séverine are friends to this day. 30 years after the end of the war, Marcel contacted local Jewish agencies and asked them to unearth possessions that were buried in her basement by families that never returned to reclaim them. This story is important because it helps us remember part of history that we sometimes wish we could forget. The Nazis during World War II hunted and tried to kill Jewish people, as well as other people who weren't alike them. We now know that it's wrong to dislike people just because they're different. And the story from The Butterfly tells a beautiful story of friendship and acceptance. And that's something that's so important to remember as we move forward in our lives. That just because somebody is different, maybe celebrates different holidays than you, or looks different, or eats things that are different, doesn't mean we can't respect them and be their friend. So today I invite you to take part of a special craft with us, and we are going to create puzzle pieces, because even though all of us in this world are different, just like every piece of a puzzle is different, we all still come together to form an amazing community, an amazing town, and an amazing world. In this post, we will have a link where you can print your own puzzle piece. If you don't have access to a printer, that's totally fine, and you can still participate, and you can draw your own puzzle piece. So I didn't have a printer at my house. So I just drew. I looked up what a puzzle piece might look like, and I drew it. And then inside your puzzle piece, we invite you to decorate it. Make it your own. If you want to color it, if you want to make a design or pattern, you can do anything you want with your puzzle piece. I decided on my puzzle piece to draw things that were important to me. So in my puzzle piece, I have my family. I have myself and my husband and my 2 great kids. I even put my puppy in there. His name is Dash, and he's a golden retriever, so I made him yellow. I have it with pink hearts because those are my favorite colors. And then on the outside of my puzzle pieces, I put a few of my favorite things. I love to bake and I love to eat cupcakes. I like to go for runs outside, so I drew some running shoes. I enjoy looking at the spring flowers and looking at flowers, so I drew a flower. I drew a cup of coffee because, like I bet a lot of your parents, especially during this time, I drink a lot of coffee and I really like it. My favorite animal is an owl, so I put that up there. And then up top here, I love books. As many books as I can get my hand on. So I have that in this corner. These are just a little snapshot about me, because what's cool is even if we all drew all of our favorite things, I bet no 2 puzzle pieces would be the exact same, because we're all a little bit different, and that's what's special. But again, you can just color it, you can make a pattern, you can make it stripes, polka dots, however you want. And then we're inviting you to have your parents take a picture of your puzzle piece. Oh, sorry, you can also cut your puzzle piece out if you wanted. I didn't get that far in my morning. But once you're finished with your puzzle piece, we would love it if your parents could take a picture and upload it to the comments. That way we can get a virtual puzzle going to celebrate all the uniqueness that we have in this town as part of the Normal Public Library and the Moses Montefiore Temple. So thank you for joining us today. Bye.
Hello, my name is MERYL Brown, and I'm one of the song leaders at Moses Montefiore Temple. And I wanted to come on here and share a song of love with you. If you look behind me at my plaque, sitting over here, it says Ahava, and in Hebrew that means love. And this song is all about how if we put more love into the world, we can get more love out of the world. And I think that's something that's really, really important as we discuss the Holocaust and remembrance and acceptance. So if you give love, we can get love. And so this is a song by my friend Billy Jonas. I've been wandering and I don't understand, stumbling around blind and thirsty towards some promised land. But I remember one so whispering in my ears, everything you do from your heart will surely echo here. So I danced and sang that tune, poured my water on the ground and watched as roses bloom. Did you put more love in the world today? More love on your way to the setting sun. There is only one measure when you can honestly say, I put more love. I remember when we had to leave our home, middle of the night, running scared, we were so alone. But we were grateful for the little that we had, cherishing the gifts and the care from every helping hand. Over time we came to see there's a simple path that leads to true prosperity. Did you put more love in the world today? More love on our way to the setting sun. There is only one measure when you can honestly say, I put more love. Well, today I found a place I could not mend, sitting on the bed, holding hands with a faithful friend. And I told her that the whole thing shook my faith, wondering aloud if our striving was really all a waste. She said, there is just one task. All that matters is your answer when the question's asked. Did you put more love in the world today? More love on your way to the setting sun. There is only one measure when you can honestly say, I put more love. And here's a part for you to sing. Simu simu achavatem ba'olam. That means put all your love into the world. Here it comes. Simu simu achavatem ba'olam. Simu simu achavatem ba'olam. Simu simu achavatem ba'olam. Simu simu achavatem ba'olam. I look forward to hearing how you've all put your love into the world. Have a great day.